Hello and welcome to In the Papers. Our press reviewer Florence Villeminot joins me in the studio. Hello to you, Flo.
Good morning.
Looking at the French press now, a lot of papers continuing to explore how the conflict in Syria could spread to neighbouring Lebanon.
That's right. The Syrian crisis is fanning the flames that are starting to spark up in Lebanon. This is according to Le Figaro, which likens Lebanon to an active volcano. Now, this comes after several Syrians were abducted in areas in Lebanon controlled by Hezbollah. And this article in Le Figaro takes a closer look at how people on the streets in Beirut are feeling about this. And according to this article, a lot of people are scared. And it points out that the road to the airport, which has often been seen as somewhat of a barometer for how tensions are in Lebanon, was closed shortly. It's been reopened and flights have been resumed since then. Now, Libération, the left-leaning newspaper, is also looking at the situation in Lebanon. First of all, why is it that tensions are rising now? And also, it's looking at how Gulf states are reacting to the situation there. Now, a lot of Gulf states have urged their citizens to leave Lebanon. Now, according to Libération, this is because Gulf states tend to support rebels in Syria, whereas according to the Gulf states, the Lebanese government is not anti-Syrian enough. So that's according to Libération. And it points out that there are fears that the situation there could really spiral out of control
and
quite soon.
And of course, there was hostage takers yesterday, that powerful clan in Beirut, saying that they were threatening to kidnap more Gulf citizens potentially. Now we're going to move to the Christian paper La Croix. It's focusing on what will happen to Syria what will happen to Bashar al-Assad, in fact, if his regime in Syria falls.
That's right. La Croix wonders, will Bashar al-Assad face justice? Now, this comes after the UN investigators accused Syria of crimes, the Syrian regime, of crimes against humanity. And there's an interesting interview in La Croix with Francis Perrin, who's the spokesperson for the French branch of Amnesty International. And he says it's not only possible that al-Assad will face justice, it's desirable, because that way it would ensure that, show the world that impunity doesn't exist and perhaps prevent future breaches of international law. And he says that the three courts that Bashar al-Assad could face justice in, first of all, a Syrian court, second of all, the International Criminal Court, or third of all, and this is quite controversial, a foreign court, according to this controversial concept of a universal jurisdiction.
Perhaps the Syrian people would like him to appear in court in their own country. Now we're moving to a story that's getting a lot of attention here in France, and that's the plight of France's Roma community. Police have been evicting hundreds of Roma from makeshift camps and sent dozens of them back to Romania as well.
That's right. We're going to start by looking at the right-leaning newspaper, Le Figaro, which is very critical of François Hollande's government. It says that the government is caught in a trap regarding the Roma. Now, it's important to note that Nicolas Sarkozy's government that implemented this law that's being put in place today, he was criticized because of this and accused of xenophobia because of this policy of massively expelling immigrants in the summer. Now, in 2010, it caused a big diplomatic row with the European Rights and Justice Commissioner Viviane Reding calling France's policy a disgrace. Now, Le Figaro says that François Hollande is putting in place the exact same policy that Nicolas Sarkozy did. Now, it's important to note that Interior Minister Manuel Valls defended these evacuations as necessary because of due to health risk. But inside, Le Figaro takes a closer look. An estimated 15 to 20,000 Roma live in France. Now, most of them are from Romania and Bulgaria, so both of these countries are EU members, and therefore Roma are EU citizens and protected by Europe. And Le Figaro explores just how the European Union is closely watching France as it expels members of the Roma community.
So the socialist government could be heading for a new clash with the EU. And how is the government reacting to these accusations that, in fact, they're following in the footsteps of Nicolas Sarkozy's administration?
Well, there's an interesting piece by Cécile Duflot, the French housing minister, in the left-leaning newspaper Libération, where she defends the government's policy and she outlines exactly what they're trying to do, and in fact kind of tweaks François Hollande's campaign promise, because during his campaign he promised that he wouldn't follow Nicolas Sarkozy's policy. He said that he wouldn't expel people unless he offered them an alternative. Now, Cécile Duflot does point out that a long-term policy that is in compliance with the EU law still needs to be built, but she says that's what the government's going to do in the weeks and months to come.
And just very quickly, it's at last hot here in France after a pretty damp summer. It's about to get a lot hotter this weekend.
A lot hotter, like canicule, as it's called here in France. Le Parisien takes a closer look and tells people just how to beat the heat this weekend.
So be careful, wear your sunscreen. Many thanks to you, Florence Villeminot, our press reviewer. That brings us to the end of In the Papers. Stay with us here on France 24.